Now, the second classification system is Gallardo's, which was his was based on Resnick's system, but he updated a lot of the stuff that he put on his, like altruism, euthanasia, child suffering from real adverse events, acute psychosis, postpartum mental disorder, according to the DSM. The postpartum specifier can be applied to mood disturbances or brief psychotic disorder if onset occurs within 4 weeks of delivery. Drug and alcohol abuse. Drug and alcohol abuse. I'm going to repeat it. Seizure disorder. Unwanted child. I'm going to repeat it. Unwanted children. Unwanted pregnancy or neonaticide. Angry impulse. Accidental renamed. Deliberately inflicted injury, but not meant to cause death. Innocent bystander. A parent often is the intended victim. Sadism and punishment. Let me repeat it. Sadism and punishment. Planned, disturbing acts meant to cause harm. List down and put down below in the comment section who the angry impulse, the unwanted child, the drug and alcohol abuse, the sadism and punishment. Here comes some more that's going to really just get your mind going. Sexual abuse. Negligence. Let me repeat it. Sexual abuse. Negligence and neglect. Negligence acts outside the realm of behavior of a reasonable person. Neglect is long-term lack of appropriate care. For those in the back that don't know the difference, the Munchausen by proxy. Harm may be intentional or unintentional. Let's go over the Meyer and Oberman's classification system for maternal infanticide. Neonatocide, which comes with denial and dissociation. They deliberately hide their pregnancy. They don't want nobody knowing. Women who kill in conjunction with their violent or abusive male partners. Again, women who kill in conjunction with their violent or abusive male partners. Neglect secondary to distraction or preoccupation. Discipline gone awry. Child abuse. Purposeful infanticide may be secondary to mental illness. And those you would think that the reason why I spoke like that is for a reason. Child homicide rates have tripled. And homicide is one of the top 5 causes of death for children ages 1 to 14 years old. In 2004, there were 311 of 578, which is 53.8% of children under the age of 5 were murdered by their parents in the U.S. Between the years of 1976 and 2004, 30% of all children murdered under the age of 5 were killed by their mothers, and 31% were killed by their fathers. Male and female children appear to be killed in equal numbers, though one study did find that fathers are more likely to kill sons, while mothers more frequently to kill daughters. Again, One study found that fathers are more likely to kill sons, while mothers are more frequently to kill daughters. Which times has changed now. The perpetrator and the characteristics. The age of a parent for maternal filicide is 29 years old. The sex of the parent is female. The age of the victim is 3.2 years old. Or we could say 2 to 3 or 3.5. Psychiatric issues are common. 36.4% suicide. Now listen to this. Methods of murder: head trauma, drowning, suffocation, strangulation. Again, methods of murder: head trauma, drowning, suffocation, strangulation. They become socially isolated, unemployed, and they have a personal history. Hold on. A personal history of abuse. Sound familiar? Does this sound familiar to anybody? Now, paternal filicide. The age of the parent is 29.5 years old, which is male, and their age of victim is 5 years old. Psychiatric issues are common. 35% suicidal. Methods of murder. More active methods such as shooting, stabbing, shaking. Again, when a father paternal filicide, their methods of murder will be more active methods like the shooting, killing, stabbing, shaking, all that. They become socially isolated, they're unemployed, and they're poor. Infanticide. The parents are usually about 24 years old, and it's both sexes, mother and father. And the age of the victim is 5 months old. Psychiatric issues are common. Suicide rate is unknown. Their methods of murder for infanticide usually is head trauma, battery, assaults. Again, head trauma, battery, and assault. They have limited education and lack of prenatal care in mothers. Now we have the neonaticide. And with this age of a parent, it's usually about 21, 22 years old. And it's usually the mother. And they're usually 24 hours old. Uncommon psychiatric issues. Suicide is rare. Their methods of murder is suffocation, drowning, exposure. They're usually unmarried and considered prima pares. Concealment of pregnancy, which they hide it because they're young. And primapara means bearing young for the first time, which means a first-time mother who's never had children before that time. The theory of evolution allows for a more objective and less emotionally charged evaluation of filicide. The goal of any species, including humans, is to procreate, and those factors that allow for the creation of the next generation are advantageous. If I say it wrong, I'm sorry, guys. I'm really trying to read my writing. And I'm tired. Like I said, I'm seeing double. In a world with limited resources, the offspring who are weaker, those with obvious physical deformities, and are not created by the careful selection of a mate, those that are the product of SA or rape, are more likely to be sacrificed in favor of stronger candidates. Younger offspring are more likely to be eliminated because less time and energy has been invested in their care. And then younger females are more willing to sacrifice offspring with the understanding that they have a longer period of fertility remaining in comparison with older females. It has been suggested that mental illness and the disorganization that it creates may be one of the main factors that causes parents not to follow the trends predicted by evolution. Maternal filicide. Most research concerning filicide has focused on the mother and has looked at the crime from a variety of different perspectives. Back in 2005, Friedman published an extensive analysis of the existing literature on maternal filicide. While they were able to reaffirm characteristics common to those women who committed neonaticide, unfortunately, it was much harder to define the type of women who murders their infant or child. There are a number of reasons for this, though. Most importantly, their circumstances vary greatly among the different populations of women assessed in each of the studies, and depending on whether the information was gathered from general psychiatric or correctional populations. The studies analyzed were all retrospective, and some contained a small number of participants. The age of the child changes the potential for filicide as well. Despite these limitations, some general conclusions were reached. The strongest general risk factor that was identified through an analysis, by Friedman, it was a history of suicidality and depression or psychosis and past use of psychiatric services. Though in the general population, studies those that used administrative records, including like coroner's reports or national statistics, it was determined that mothers are at highest risk of filicide and were often socially isolated, indigent, full-time care providers who may have been victims of domestic violence themselves, Again, those statistics of women were victims of domestic violence themselves, and those from the psychiatric population were married, unemployed, used alcohol, and had a history of being abused. Though women from the correctional population were more often found to be unmarried and unemployed, with a lack of social support, limited education, and a history of substance use. For synopsis of this data, although there was no specific study that exists, the literature also supported the idea that younger children are at greater risk for fatal maltreatment, which can lead to accidental filicide, which means abusing them but not with the intent of killing them, while other children are more often the victims of purposeful homicide. Risk factors for maternal filicide are based on Hatters-Friedman study population. The characteristics with psychiatric history, suicidality, depression, psychosis, social isolation, unemployed. They have a personal history of abuse, history of substance abuse, married, unmarried, indigent, and limited education. And 2 studies in the literature highlighted the importance of the mother's own childhood as a factor in the crime. A number of women who went on to commit filicide received inadequate mothering, secondary to their own mothers being unavailable to them due to a variety of reasons, including alcoholism, absence, physical or verbal abuse, or mental health problems. In another study done by Friedman, it reviewed the developmental histories of 39 women who were adjudicated insane following charges of filicide. They found that 38% had a history of physical and sexual abuse. 5% were incest victims, which means they were raped by someone in the family. And 49% were abandoned by their own mothers. These figures may represent low estimates, given that some of the information about these women was unknown. Several studies have identified certain characteristics found in mothers who commit filicide. The number of women evaluated in each study ranged from the age of 17 to 89. The average age of the woman was 29 years old, and 2/3 of the women were married. The victim was, on average, 3 to 4 years old. And many of the women had psychiatric diagnosis. Sorry guys, somebody was calling my phone. A separate study indicated that those mothers who are mentally ill were generally older when they committed the filicidal act. I'm sorry, guys. I promise I'm tired. And the children killed by these women were typically older as well. Based on the 6 studies, an average of 36.4% of filicidal women attempted or committed suicide. Another study showed that 16 to 29% of all mothers successfully commit suicide following a filicidal act. The most common methods of murder identified in 6 studies were head trauma. Let me repeat it. Head trauma, drowning, suffocation, and strangulation. In addition, Rouge Mallart made the connection that women who accidentally killed their young children during an episode of abuse shared many characteristics with mothers who commit neonaticide, including being young, poor, unemployed, single, and without a suicide attempt following the act. Okay, I'm going to stop and go make a part 2. Please like, comment, share, spread the word of filicide so everyone is aware. And like I said, as I'm going over this, please tell me down below which case this makes you think of. The parents, all that. Let me know down below. Thank you. Have a great day. Peace, love, light, blessings. Many love. Be safe out there. Keep your children safe and protected. They're in my prayers, as well as their parents. And again, please, 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 please be careful who you trust around your children. And if you see something, say something, please. Have a blessed day. This is Shining Light, signing out.